Recently, I returned from a trip outside the country to find that my home grounds have been invaded and a brand new Appian way sliced through my sanctuary. That motorable path was made by the hoofed invaders. Both the improvised entry and exit are now blocked, but interested journalists are invited to visit. In over 2 decades of living in that ecological preserve, no such intrusion had ever occurred. I have no idea whether they were Fulani or Futagalon herdsmen, but they were cattle herders, and that's all that matters. And they had cut a crude swathe through my private grounds to reflect upon and take concerted measures against. Herdsmen, let us appreciate, are perhaps humanity's earliest known tourists. They must be taught, however, that there is a culture of settlement and learn to seek accommodation with settler hosts wherever encountered. The leadership of any society cannot stand idly and offer solutions that implicitly deem the massacres of innocents mere incidents on the way to that learning school. For every crime, there is a punishment. For every violation, there must be restitution. The nomads of the world cannot place themselves above the law of settled humanity. End of quotation. Well, why have I decided that it is time to return to the material of that address? Simply because my home has been invaded yet again. I reported to the police and I reported to the Alake of Abeokuta, the suzerain of my territory. They came this time right to my doorstep. In other words, they didn't just cut a motorable way across the property. They actually came through another path and came right to my doorstep. Well, we're living in very dangerous times. Other things have happened, by the way, which I haven't made public. If you want to go and check, go and ask the police in Abeokuta. And they make me convinced that this is a deliberate act of provocation. I'm not much given to the conspiracy theory, but the incidents which have taken place in that sanctuary over the past few months, very alarming, very life-threatening. The records are with the police. I'm not about to dramatize the situation. What matters is that my home is being invaded, as are the farms of my neighbors, some of whom have taken to erecting barriers, things we've never seen in that area over the past decade since I began living there. They're now erecting crude. There have been clashes, by the way. There have been clashes between the farmers and the herdsmen. The police have had to interfere a couple of times, chase them out. They returned. This time, they come through a different path and have come out to my doorstep. Well, let's not exaggerate, but at the same time, let us not be sanguine about intrusions like this. These people who have no respect for human lives and who use human beings, including some of our Chibok girls, as suicide bombers. Why shouldn't they decide to use cattle as suicide bombers? It's not an exaggerated way of thinking. It's a accumulation of many things which have been undergoing in this country, not just around my area, just in Ogun State, in Anambra, in Edo, in Benue, etc., etc., where herdsmen are being appeased not to kill, not to destroy. And now what I'm looking at in our neighborhood are tentative probes to see how far these people can go. I see no other interpretation, considering these other events, which, as I said, I've reported to the police, and the police have records. They're camping all over the place, and they're not camping as peaceful neighbors. they're camping as conquerors. That is what is happening here. That is why I use the expression terms of enslavement. It seems to me that there is a movement to enslave the citizens of this nation wherever they happen to be, to show that they are masters of the land. There's an aggression. That aggression used to be in the forest. I think I've told you before that there are certain areas in the forest where when we go hunting, we no longer venture because of what we have seen, unless we go en masse and equipped for more than killing a barrow. But the forest, you can say, is no man's land. We can choose to go there or not go there. I can find my hobby in other areas, and we can send scouts ahead and see which areas have not been infiltrated and go hunting there. But when cattle come right to your doorstep, I think we are now in a very different territory. And I think one has the right to assume that any cow which comes to one's doorstep is a potential suicide bomber, and to take preemptive action to ensure that our homes are not turned into Maiduguri. The leadership of this nation is taking this menace far too lightly. It's a year ago since I read that speech, when the president promised that cattle assault will soon be a thing of the past. Is it going to happen in the next 6 months? With the police still busy chasing kidnappers, soldiers trying to preempt the remnants of the degraded Boko Haram? Is that pledge going to be fulfilled in the next 6 months since that speech was first read? In any case, should we wait another 6 months to ensure that no more Ogun State farmers are killed, no more Edo farmers are killed, their wives raped, their children beheaded for going to the help of other people? Will the next peace meeting be like the one which was held in Benue over a year ago, when herdsmen actually arrived with AK-47, I beg your pardon, and were not disarmed, came to the peace meeting with these weapons and were allowed to leave? This is what has impunity and enslavement. This is actually poking a finger at the peaceful citizens of this nation. The crisis is very real, and it's futile and suicidal to pretend otherwise. I'm not the Inspector General of Police. I'm not the Chief of Staff of the military. But I think that all these various agencies are falling down on their job, and the citizens are being told to look after their safety, like we look after everything else, like we look after our own electricity and make our own water holes, bore our own boreholes, so we can have basic amenities, arrange our own transportation because of lack of public transportation. I think the citizens are being told now, whether we like it or not, to look after their own safety. Whether the solution is to have more drum festivals, so because from what I am seeing, there'll be a lot of, if everything goes logically, there'll be a lot of cattle hide for the making of drums. If things push actually get, there's just so much amount of sugar you can eat. So maybe it's drums we take to making next. But I think we don't have to get this far. And I think the only way to do that is by waking up leadership and letting them know that we're talking about serious day-to-day life and death issues of dignity, the right not to be raped, and especially on your own land. Sort of conqueror mentality. This is what we're dealing with at the moment. So yes, the police must go after stashed loot. They must go after kidnappers, yes. Kidnappers, these herdsmen are no better than kidnappers. What's the difference? They're even worse than Boko Haram in many aspects. And hear this being treated as a light issue, a casual issue, or will go away. Some kind of action is required to call leadership to order. Maybe we should have a day of beef boycott, which we just do not eat beef, no roundabouts, find other means of satisfying our protein one way or the other. I know the vegetarians will be very happy, at least in that section of the community. A certain form of signal action is indicated at this stage that will call leadership to a sense of responsibility and compel it to take holistic action. Not a question of just Ogun State, Benue, but holistic national action.